Welcome to our podcast, When Life Gives You Lemons. I'm Kevin Henry, and my partner in crime in life is Palmy Henry. I have a rare disease known as spinal cephalopathy ataxia, which is a neuromuscular disease. This has left me mobility challenges as well as with a speech impediment and noise-induced anxiety.
Living with these disabilities for over 20 years, we have developed helpful hints and life lessons that we would like to share with you that has made our life easier and possible in some cases. We consider ourselves disability advocates and intend to educate ourselves and you about other disabilities and issues, and also talk about things we find interesting and frequently encounter when we're out and about.
Welcome back to our show. What we're doing is replaying classic episodes from last year to make up during the break that we have for the holiday season. As a reminder, the next season starts on May 5th. Thank you. Enjoy.
Hi again. This is When Life Gives You Lemons. I'm Palmy.
And I'm Kevin.
And this episode, we're going to do a little out of our comfort zone here. It's not exactly about disabilities. It's a lot of, Kevin's really into history, and he's been researching 3 controversial conditions from our past and present. Remember, neither host is a physician, and any medical opinions are made by other opinions as to historical facts. So the 3 controversial conditions are
the dancing plague, Gulf War syndrome, and long COVID.
Why don't we, the one I found most interesting, because I had never heard anything about it, was the dancing plague.
Yeah, it's fairly well documented in history. It's kind of overshadowed by the bubonic plague or the Black Death. So
as it should be.
That tends to, grab a lot more headlines than, say, the dancing fever.
Which does not seem like it would be a bad thing, unless you died of it.
Yeah, it doesn't seem really that bad, but apparently people did die from it. So, yeah.
So here's some facts. The outbreak began in July of 1518 when a woman from Strasbourg, Kevin's the pronouncer, started dancing continuously, and it went on for weeks and weeks straight. And the funny part, not funny, but the interesting part was that immediately, or as it lagged on, more and more people came down with this illness called the dancing chaos. It has said to claim 400 victims, where the dancers would dance until they collapsed, dying of either a heart attack or, I imagine, heat stroke or, dehydration. I imagine there's a lot of things that could cause. But by that early September, the outbreak began to subside, and the dancers that had not perished were sent to a mountain shrine to pray for absolution. So we have to kind of keep our mind in the times period that we're talking here, which is 1518. So during that time period, we were experiencing the plague, the Black Death. People were going hungry. There was a lot of stress, just everyday stress, I imagine. People were dying all around you. So that contributed, they think, to this disease. There were several opinions on what had caused it. Do you remember what they are, Kev?
One of them was a fungus that infects grains Basically, it forms a
Ergot.
ergot. It forms a substance similar to LSD, and it's basically the drug LSD when it was synthesized was using ergot as a model. So it's psychogenic for sure.
So that seems plausible because here we are looking at the Black Plague and people are starving to death. There's not a lot of food. And I imagine they were willing to eat just about anything. I think you made a joke when we were preparing for this episode that, the 5-second rule did not apply back then. It was more like eat it when you find it.
Eat it where and when you find it.
There you go. Another one of the speculations on how this happened was
mass hypnosis or mass hysteria.
Yeah, that has happened a lot in the past. I know there were several episodes where...
Which kind of seems more feasible. I mean, if you dose people with LSD, odds are they don't all have the same hallucination.
Right.
So,
that was what the doctors concluded too.
Yeah.
Present doctors.
I mean, it's possible that, someone would comment, oh, I hear music, I must dance. And that would impress upon others to have the same auditory hallucination.
Similar to the witch trials of Salem.
Yeah, there's some speculation that ergot played a role in that as well. But I think that was more a case of somebody doing something unusual, and the times were such.
Suspicious.
I mean, medical science had, progressed to a point where they'd slap leeches on you or bleed you to balance your humors. Not, and there was no such thing as mental illness. And nobody understood any of the core principles of what we now call mass hysteria or mass hypnosis. So, because this was a while ago, there is no way to test for the drug-induced ergot theory, if you will.
Yeah, they jumped right to
demonic possession.
Yeah, and divine judgment. So that would have been a scary time. That lady that we talked about that started the dancing, she was not the first in history to have that happen. There were several times in the medieval ages, in the 11th century, in Saxony, where it was believed that a woman was bitten by a tarantula, and the venom made her dance convulsively. So there's a lot of you hear stories, and they may be fish stories where, it may not have been as bad as it was, or, she wasn't really dancing. She just was having convulsions on the ground.
No, they pretty conclusively determined they weren't convulsions because of the length of time it was affecting people, like a week or whatever it was.
Yeah, that is a long time.
Whereas if you had convulsions, it would not last that long, and whatever it was causing them would have either killed you or presented it another way by then.
Makes sense. What I found interesting was these events have inspired movies, books, songs. Specifically, a couple of songs were written about this. In the 2022, the song Core Mania by the Florence and the Machine. It's on the third track of the album Dance Fever, which took its title from the song. We listened to it, and it was pretty interesting, and you could definitely tell it was based on that kind of disease.
Yeah, earlier than that, Kate Bush had a song that was called The Red Shoes.
Yep, that's what it was.
Unfortunately, we can't play either one of those because they're both under copyright.
But go and listen to them yourself. They're very interesting, very different, totally different genre. There you go. And then they said that this, for Kate Bush, she said in her notes that the song was inspired by the characters in Michael Powell's film of the same name, Red Shoes, which itself was inspired by a fairy tale by the same name by Hans Christian Andersen, which we all know. He's tons of fairy tales. And they all had
weird takes
lessons. Lessons for children.
And they were kind of like morality tales, if you will, for children.
Beware tales.
But would you explain a little bit about the significance of red shoes?
Oh, yes, that's right. Back in that episode in the 1518, the people, those who were danced were ordered to go to the shrine of Saint Vistus, and they were made to wear red shoes that were sprinkled with holy water and painted crosses on the tops and soles. They also had to hold a small cross in their hand and incense and do Latin incantations as part of this ritual to be forgiven by Saint Victorous. Of course, the church took credit that the dancing plague had ended by the results, saying that their rituals were successful and able to eliminate it.
Oh, imagine back in that time with the sway that the church had in everyday life. If they said something like that, people just generally accepted it as being true.
Right.
Okay, next on the list is Gulf War syndrome.
Yeah, you know a lot about that.
Well, I do because I read a lot about it while I was in the Army. I was in the Army during the Gulf War. I think it was a statistic we were reading where 1/3 of the deployed soldiers came back with Gulf War syndrome.
Correct. Yep, that's correct.
And that is a medical nut that doctors never cracked what exactly caused it. It even got so scary to the point where not just you would get it, but when you came back home after the war, which was very brief as wars go, potentially you gave it to your family as well.
But here we're looking at, the symptoms were very vague. Fatigue, muscles, skeletal pain, cognitive problems, skin rashes, diarrhea. Again, this is not list is not intended to be all composing.
All inclusive.
Inclusive, yeah. But here again, if we were looking at the symptoms back in the day with the dancing fever, mass hysteria.
Well, I think there's a better explanation for it. It can manifest in soldiers and aggravate or be amplified by PTSD. So it's all in their head. And then when they get back home, you don't hear a lot about this, but when you actually deploy to war, of course, your family back home is very worried about you, your safety, and all that stuff. And also, they have a lot of stuff that previously you had to deal with, and only you, the military, would only let you deal with it. And so it was totally brand new to them to have to solve these riddles on their own.
Yeah. These veterans were also exposed to a lot of stuff while they were over there. It was a very short war, but time-wise, but there was a lot of chemical warfare agents, particularly nerve gases and other mustard gas and stuff like that had been used previously. They looked for were they looking for? What was their mission?
They were looking for weapons of mass destruction, which this was a Bush Sr. era war, and it basically was like over in less than a day on the ground side. But they did undergo a very long period of airstrikes and artillery strikes before the ground forces moved in. So basically, they wanted to take out as many enemy forces as possible before our forces. It was actually a coalition of many nations became involved in the actual shooting part of the war. That, like I said, lasted a day. And at that point, the goal of making Iraq leave Kuwait was accomplished. So we didn't invade Iraq after that. We just liberated Kuwait. So Saddam Hussein was in power at the time, and yes, he did use chemical weapons against several villages in his own country. So we know he had them for the later war, but we don't know if he managed to hide them well enough to never be found, or perhaps he just used them all up.
Yeah. There's a lot of psychological factors in that too, where you're, being told that there is, weapons of mass destruction. So for the veterans that were there and their families, there was a lot of stress, post-stress trauma. PTSD. That's right.
Yeah, imagine being, say, a charcoal-laden suit with your gas mask. It's hot and cold weather, so I can't imagine wearing it in hot weather like you'd encountered a desert.
And then there was stuff like the the drills that were set on fire. So there was a lot of exposure to that kind of those chemicals. What God only knows what they're burning, and they were breathing into their bodies.
So that brings us to long
Well, let's
COVID.
talk about what they're doing as for there is no cure, of course. There's all three of these have the same issue. There is no cure. But on behalf of the Department of the Veterans Affairs, they conducted a study and released a report recommending that veterans who were experiencing symptoms related to the CMI, an integrated system-wide long-term management approach should be implemented. And what they do is they are
basically treating the symptoms.
Right, yeah.
Which is what all three of these have in common. They just have, well, in the case of like the medieval dancing plague, they did their best to treat the symptoms. Of course, they were still worried about things like demonic possession and lack of medical knowledge at the time. So the Department of Veterans Affairs didn't slap leeches on anybody, did the best of my knowledge.
Oh, here it is. The approach is called cognitive behavior treatment, which it may help the patients with non-specific symptoms lead more productive lives by actively managing their symptoms. So that was their Band-Aid for that. And so the third thing we're coming to is the most recent, 3 years ago now?
Yeah, well, that varies, but yes.
Yeah.
It's been around a while.
So it's COVID-19. Da, 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 da. Our latest apparent.
Most people caught COVID and sought medical treatment and went along their merry way and have returned to normal by now. But very few people, it seems like, never really ditched COVID. And doctors aren't sure why.
And this is called long COVID.
It's more of a term developed by people who associated with it because they feel the underlying cause was COVID, and long COVID because, well, the symptoms never really went away. They still have things like fatigue,
shortness of breath, cognitive problems, symptoms that come and go, which can impact someone's everyday life and can't be explained by other health issues. So SARS-CoV-2 can attack the body in a range of ways, causing damage to the lungs, heart, nervous system, kidneys, liver, and other organs. The mental health problems can arise from the grief and loss and unresolved pain or fatigue, or from post-traumatic stress syndrome after being treated in the ICU. So we really don't know. They really don't know when you get a light case of it, what exactly is infected or is affected in your body. You could have have had damage and it not have shown up until one, you can't smell or taste anything. That's a very common complaint with a lot of COVID sufferers and long COVID sufferers also.
Or you might have a altered sense of taste or smell. Things you really like the taste of before, kind of like repulsive. Same with smells. You might have had a favorite smell that just didn't do it for you anymore.
And that doesn't happen with everybody either. So big question was, did COVID vaccines does it prevent the long COVID? Basic education is that getting a vaccination will lower the risk of the infection. While breakthrough infections are possible, fully vaccinated and boosted is the most effective way to reduce the risk of hospitalization and death due to COVID. Research is going on how long COVID affects people who have had outbreaks of COVID, but it is likely that being vaccinated reduces that risk.
Yeah, one thing that I was pretty sure of is it was because it was a pandemic and affected the entire world. We learned in history class about something called the Spanish flu, which wasn't really Spanish, but killed a lot of people. And it was similar in that there were a lot of the same arguments in our country surfaced. I remember sitting in history class taking notes saying, I am so glad that we were smart enough not to do this again. But that's exactly what we did again.
That's why we should learn about history, so we don't repeat it.
Well, yeah, the problem with learning about history is then you have to watch everybody else repeat it.
Yeah.
But one thing that all three of these had in common, and that was the theme we were going for. Someone says there's a problem with me, there is a problem. And in all three of these, all they could do was treat symptoms. They couldn't find a cause, or they haven't found a cause yet in the case of long COVID. So,
and the Gulf War syndrome.
Yeah, they just end up, saying, okay, fatigue, take a nap, or we can give you less drowsy medication, perhaps.
So what we're stressing is, doctors, medical professionals should really dig down in and make sure, not just tell you it's all in your head. There's quite a few diseases that, had to be stressed and pushed and researched in order for us to come up with the diagnosis in the end. And so we thought we were better than that, but it's been going on for, since the Middle Ages. Same thing.
Yeah, the outlook for long COVID sufferers, I don't think is looking really good, because science nowadays needs firm data and a lot of it to make a study correctly using the scientific method. Same with the Gulf War. There's not a lot of long COVID sufferers, and B, it seemed like every state, every county, every hospital had a different way of sorting data. So it's like it turned out to be almost impossible for medical researchers to get COVID data, accurate COVID data that works with their study.
Scientific methods.
Yeah, basically, I think initially there were a couple studies of COVID that were published, but then later had to be retracted because they found out the data wouldn't match up with their data. So it kind of invalidated their conclusions, scientifically, I mean.
And unfortunately, the sufferers are the ones that, have to end up dealing with it on a day-to-day basis.
And as we all know, there are several medical conditions that people claim to have certain symptoms, like some of the rare diseases. Some of them may have some sort of connection to a mental problem. A lot of the brain problems have not really been researched adequately to address that, whether or not that is a cause. But it's extremely frustrating to go to a physician or a medical professional, say, hey, I've got this problem, and they'll tell you, you're just making that up.
Or it's in your head, or do this and you'll feel better. Take this pill and you'll feel better. When there's something bigger that they need to investigate and figure it out what it is.
And to add insult to injury, there are people out there that'll sell you snake oil to fix all your problems, but it's just that it's fake. If that is in your head, I guess that would fix your problem, but if you think it works. But as far as actually fixing a real condition, no, it won't.
Well, I think we talked about all three, and I learned quite a bit from it. I hope you guys did too. We'll be coming back with our 4th episode here. We're doing a little jumping around and some people have suggested some episodes for us, and so we're digging into the research now and gonna get those ready to go. We'll download.
The very next episode was inspired actually by my wife dragging me to see the Barbie movie.
And he loved it, didn't you?
It was entertaining, but I wouldn't say loved was the correct word.
I had to use one of my chick flick movies.
Yeah, she only gets a few of those a year, so just be forewarned that we'll be talking about Barbie stuff, Barbie-related stuff, and maybe you already have, seen what we're going to talk about, if you've already seen this movie or not.
It's not about Barbie. The episode will be about how disabilities have been integrated into this modern society, basically.
Yeah,
but
it was
Barbie's a good. We noticed it.
It was a good example because we noticed it there, and we got some hard data from it. So instead of just going by opinion or how it makes us feel, we'll talk about what we saw and why it was that way.
And what it was in the past and what it is now. Hopefully it's getting better.
That's all you know for.
Yeah. Well, bye now. We'll talk to you later. See
you next time.
We are always looking to improve the podcast, so if you want to hear a specific topic, have a differing opinion, want to add something to the conversation, drop us an email. Our contact information is listed on our website. It's www.whenlifegivesyoulemons.net. We have recently added a companion YouTube channel called Making the Lemonade. If you enjoy the podcast, continue your enjoyment by joining us on YouTube.